Hi, my name is Mark Ryan. I'm going to talk you through how to use Microsoft InTune to manage iOS devices, how to use that to deploy SCEP, Certificate Enrollment Protocol, and then how to tie those together to be able to do Kerberos single sign-on from iOS devices to your Enterprise Active Directory. So just a brief kind of uh, view of my setup. I've got my devices. I'm going to enroll them into Microsoft Azure. They're going to target my certificate server. My certificate server will issue certificates against from the domain controller. The certificate server is connected to Azure using the Azure connector for SCEP. And what that will allow me to do is to do things like ADFS, transparent authentication against the domain controller. And I'm also going to be able to target the Apache server. Apache server performs Kerberos authentication against Azure AD. Just to walk through the process, I'm going to enroll the device in InTune. That'll deploy a SCEP certificate. So it'll kick off that enrollment process. The SCEP certificate is linked to my Kerberos profile, so it's a seed for the Kerberos credential. When we do that, we're going to authenticate against the Apache server. Now I'm going to deploy two different profiles. We'll do one, and then we'll de-enroll, and we'll re-enroll with a different one to show you the difference between the two profiles that Apple provide you. One is just SSO. And it'll actually enumerate the domain looking for the KDC at the root. The other one is introduced in iOS 13 is the SSO Extension. And what that enables you to do is more granularly control how iOS enumerates the domain using the sites and services. And we'll show you how that transparent single sign-on works. So let's just come out of this, and we'll come over to InTune. So these are the two different profiles I've got, single sign-on and the SSO extension. So what we'll do, I'm just going to come in here, and we'll start with the showing you. In fact, what we'll do is we will disable this one. So what we'll do is we'll unassign it, essentially. So what we see here, we've got the root CA. So this is my certificate authority for my Active Directory. Very simple. It's my the root CA certificate. We're going to install that. I've got a SCEP profile. The SCEP profile basically does a couple of things. So we need the subject name, the canonical name, to be my user principal name. It also needs subject alternate name of the UPN and my email address, both specified. So it pulls those out of my directory. It needs to have key encipherment and digital signature. Needs to be 2048-bit private key. We tie that root CA certificate to the SCEP profile, and we need to have client authentication, Kerberos client authentication, server authentication, and smart card login associated with the SCEP profile. And I'll show you how that looks in a second. And then this is my SCEP server. This is what's actually then linked via the SCEP profile to my Azure AD tenant. And this is going to be assigned to all users. So that's my SCEP configuration. And then in my, this is this Kerberos SCEP SSO profile. This is what iOS introduced in, or Apple introduced in iOS 8, their ability to do Kerberos authentication. And so we've always been able to do this. This is this single sign-on here. And basically, you need a Kerberos principal name, which is your SAM account name. The realm is your AD domain, and you specify prefixes for what you want to enable Kerberos single sign-on to work for. So I've got http star.wellsgeek.net, https star.wellsgeek.net, and https auto log on to Microsoft Azure AD SSO.com. That's for Azure AD Kerberos single sign-on. And we then tie that SCEP certificate as the renewal certificate. It's the certificate that's going to be used to get those Kerberos credentials. So let's cancel that. We don't really want to edit that. What we want to do is edit, and we'll assign this to all users and devices, and we'll click Save. So this is the first one we're going to do. Okay, so that's all set up there. And I think what's probably a good place to also start, if I come to my domain controller, I'll just show you how my domain is set up. So I've got my domain, wellsgeek.net. I have, if I look at the root, wellsgeek.net _ TCP _ so this entry here _ Kerberos _ TCP.wellsgeek.net. This is my KDC at the root. Now this is a demo environment, so not a great deal of detail of everything that's going on. But if you imagine a global enterprise having lots of locations, lots of domain controllers across the entire Active Directory, this entry _ Kerberos _ TCP.wellsgeek.net as an SRV record would contain every single domain controller that is available. And when you try to sign on, it will just go and randomly go and get one from, or we'll try and authenticate to any one of those ones that is available. Whereas Microsoft gives you this capability, it's the sites, and what we do within sites is we can define different sites. Here I've got one called England, I've got one called Wales. I can actually define a domain controller in England, which is DC2, and I can configure a different one in my site, which is Wales, which is called, when it comes up, slight delay. It's also called DC2. Oh, hang on. There we go. It's also called DC2. But you can imagine a scenario where you have different domain controllers in different sites. So you can be more specific to say, if you're in this site, use this domain controller. So it's all part of Microsoft Sites and Services. And so we have that. Here are my different sites, England, Wales. I can define, this is what I was actually looking at, here's my different servers and things like that under Sites and Services. And then in my domain controller, I've got my certificate templates. This one here, Kerb2, is the one that matches the Kerberos ticket that we were, or the Kerberos SCEP profile. So when SCEP enrolls, it will issue a certificate against this template. So we have this one defined here. Okay, so what I'm then going to do, I'm going to start a packet capture here because I think it's important to just show you what's going on there. And what we will do, and this, by the way, this packet capture is capturing just from my iPad. So I'm going to flick over to my iPad here. It's a shared screen. It's tethered to my laptop so you can see what's going on. And I'm going to launch the InTune console. Very interesting. It hasn't actually figured out that I'm no longer part of the, there we go. So I want to click, so it's because I don't enroll. So we'll sign in here. And it's noticed that this device isn't enrolled. So it says, right, what would you like to do? Well, we're going to enroll. We'll click begin. We'll click continue. It's going to ask to download the management profile. There we go. We'll launch the launches the portal, downloads the management profile. We want to allow it to download it. We'll click close on that, and we will come across to the profiles. We've got my management profile, and I'll click install. At this point it asks me for my PIN, which you don't get to see, and we'll click install. We'll give it a second to install that profile. We'll click install. Yes, we trust it. And once this is installed, this is then a managed device, and all of the other profiles that we've created will come across. So we'll click done on that. We'll just come back across to there and click continue. It realizes we've installed the profile, and now it's going to sit there whilst it goes off and does all of its fingerprinting and enrollment. And if we come back across here, we can look at this profile and we'll see what's going on. It's enrolled in InTune, the InTune management profile. It's Microsoft, it's signed by Microsoft iOS management, and all of those things for my tenant. So we'll give that a second to complete. We can see that it's then gone and it's created this SCEP profile, and here's my common name. Got all these components in there, the validity period, digital signature and key encipherment. It's got these subject alternative names, the email address and the NT principal name. Those are critical for it to be able to get those Kerberos tickets. And it tells us where our OCSP is and our certificate revocation lists are. So we've got all of that available, meaning that we can validate those certificates and revoke them as needed. And of course, my servers can check for that certificate revocation as well. So we're all enrolled, and then I've got my Kerberos SSO. So it sees my principal name is M. Ryan, my realm is wellskeep.net. I've got those prefix matches, and I've got my eligible app IDs. So before I go and do anything, let's just come across to my domain controller here, which is doing the packet capture. It'll also capture stuff that's going to my Apache server. Not a great deal of stuff going on here. But what we can see is that there was this certificate request. We did we went off and did the SCEP. We obviously can't see what's going on there, but 1.20 is the client, 1.7 is the certificate server, which runs as a VM on this platform. So we see all of the SCEP enrollment happening, and we are all good to go. So we're enrolled. So what I'll do is I'll come across back to my iPad, and I'm going to launch Safari, and I'll go to apache.wellskeep.net, and the server displays. So I'm logged in, I can access the service. And how do I know what's going on in the background? So let's just come back to my screen sharing, and we see here. So I did so here's my lookup for my Apache server. I did a request to the Apache server, said get the home page, and the home page came back and said 401 unauthorized. It says authenticate, negotiate. So it's a Kerberos authentication challenge. So what happened is the client did an SRV lookup for _Kerberos_TCP.wellskeep.net at the root, and it got an answer back saying, okay, the answer is, as you can see here, the answer is the KDC is at dc2.wellskeep.net on port 88. And the client then said, okay, well, I want to get my Kerberos ticket, so it connected to the domain controller .2. Pre-authentication is required to get the Kerberos ticket granting ticket, and here we send across that ticket granting ticket. We sent across the request for the ticket granting ticket, and we sent our Kerberos the SCEP certificate as part of that. And so here we have the reply, and the ticket is the ticket granting ticket for welshgeek.net. So once I've got the ticket granting ticket, I can then start making requests for a service ticket for apache.welshgeek.net, which was great. Here's the reply. Here's my ticket for apache.welshgeek.net. And then I went across and I said, great, give me the page. And here is my SPNIGO ticket, which is my Kerberos ticket I got before. So all well and good. I get transparent sign-on to Active Directory, transparent sign-on into Kerberos applications. However, as I said, the challenge with this is what it's doing is it's enumerating the Active Directory at the root. So it doesn't take account for any sites and services. And in a large enterprise, that becomes a real challenge, because you can end up with Kerberos tickets being requested from domain controllers which are geographically distant from where the user is coming from. And we talk about why is this important to Zscaler? It's important to Zscaler because we work with a lot of clients that say they need transparent single sign-on to work, but even more so with a Zscaler private access deployment, we want that transparent sign-on, that transparent enrollment, both to Zscaler client connector as well as to applications through Zscaler private access to be worked out using the proper sites and services. So let's change this. Let's come back across to my iPad, and what I'll do is I'll close down my Safari browser, and I will come in here to my management profile, and we'll remove that profile and see what we can do with the new functionality provided from iOS 13. So we've removed the profile, and what we will do is we will come across to our configuration profiles here. In fact, we'll go into this SCEP one a second, this SCEP Kerberos SSO one. What we'll do is we will edit it, and we will remove the allocation. Save. So let's take a look at this new one that was introduced in iOS 13. So it gives you slightly different configuration profiles, configuration parameters. So it's here as single sign-on app extension. So we're going to say, okay, it's Kerberos. We still get the realm. Totally different syntax in the way that we configure what it will authenticate to. So no longer http://star.welshgeek.net or https://star.welshgeek.net. We need to put in just .welshgeek.net, and the preceding dot is really important. You have a couple of extra parameters. Do we want to make sure that the user's in front of the device, Face ID is there or whatever? Do we want to ensure that the user is seen before they can go off and get these tickets? We're not worried about those. And you can actually configure to this site auto discovery. And if you hover over this, it actually says the Kerberos extension doesn't automatically use LDAP and DNS to determine its Active Directory site name. So if I was to click yes to that, it would behave the same as the previous profile. But that's not what I want. I want this to use site discovery using LDAP, CLDAP to enumerate the domain and then figure out where my closest domain controller is. So in that regard, it'll behave the same as any Windows device in some respects. I still need to provide the principal name. Although I don't select SAM account name as I did from the drop down, I need to present it as a variable. So double curly brace, on-premise SAM account name is the variable I want in there. I can hard code people to a specific site, so this kind of overrides this site auto discovery further. But but I don't want to do that. I want to demonstrate how the CLDAP lookup performs. And then everything else I can kind of leave as blank. I don't want to restrict certain app bundles to this, so I want to make it across the device, and I don't want to do any realm mapping. If you hover over this, it says, you probably won't need to do this. But I still select the SCEP certificate as the PK in it, the certificate that's going to be used to initialize that Kerberos ticket granting ticket process. And that's about it. So I'll cancel out of that. I don't want to change that. But what I do want to do is I want to now assign this all users and devices. I'll click review and save and click save. So before I go off and deploy this, I'll just come in here. I'm going to stop this capture. I am going to save it because I always think it's helpful. So we'll save that as Kerberos SSO _iPad. And what we'll do is we'll kick off a new one whilst we go and enroll. So I'll come back over here. You can see my iPad, and we'll go through this process again. I'll launch the company portal. I'll cancel that because it realizes that I really should have cancelled that. There we go, right. So I can click Get Access again, click Continue, download the management profile again. Allow that, click Close, click Continue. What we'll then do, come over here, we'll see the management profile, we'll install it. Install. Yep. Done. So the same as before, we can come over, yes, I've installed the profile, click Continue, and it'll go on and it'll do all of the settings that it had before. So let's come back over and look at this profile whilst it installs. No different. Obviously, it's gone through that whole enrollment process as it did before. We've got the MDM certificates. It goes off and it fingerprints the device and figures out what other profiles to go ahead and install. There we go. So now we've got this SCEP certificate again. No difference in the SCEP certificate. It's exactly the same. Well, not exactly the same because it's a SCEP certificate, so but the template is the same. Here's the profile for Active Directory and everything. However, now we have this single sign-on extension, so it's slightly different the way it's defined it. But we've now got, the type is it's a credential, the realm is welshgeek.net, it's the Kerberos extension, and the host is just .welshgeek.net. So let's just take a quick look. We've got the packet capture going there. So let's launch Apache, launch Safari, and then go to apache.welshgeek.net. The page displays exactly the same. So we've still got a Kerberos ticket, but let's come over here and take a look at how the packet capture looked. So we've got all of the steps as before. We see it go into the certificate server to get the SCEP certificates. So that's all good. After enrollment, we see the user go to the Apache server, we see the GET, we see the unauthorized, HTTP, authenticate, negotiate. But now, what we see is the client does first off, it does a server lookup for _LDAP TCP welshgeek.net. So it's looking for the LDAP servers that can provide details on the domain. And the answer is, okay, it's DC2, and we got the lookup for DC2. And what then happens is it does this LDAP bind. So it's slightly different to what a Windows workstation would do, because that would use connectionless CLDAP. Would be a UDP connection, whereas this does the TCP connection. But it's the same kind of thing. So it does a lookup, and it says what servers can do the net logon process, and the result is okay. The resulting entry is a list of servers, and it says, well, your forest is welshgeek.net, your domain is welshgeek.net, your site is England, and it's seeing that based upon the IP address. England is the 192.168.1/24 address range, as we see over here. Let's come sites and services, sites, England. If we site is based on a subnet 192.168.1.0/24, so we've got that. So it says your site is England, and it says the host name that can actually authenticate you in that site is dc2.welshgeek.net. If I was in another site that had a different domain controller, I'd get a different answer. So the LDAP lookup gives me an answer based on the source IP address I'm coming from. So it means I can steer traffic a lot better towards specific domain controllers. So then we unbind and we close the connection. So there we have it. The client got the Kerberos ticket based on the site. We can then see that it presented this Kerberos ticket down to the device. There is the Kerberos ticket that came through, and this demonstrates that the SSO extension actually is an improvement on the previous extension, because it targets the domain controller in the local site. I hope this was useful. Any questions? Email me, mark@zscaler.com. Thank you.